Not this one. Not this one. Definitely not that one. One of these. Which one is it? There's a clue there. Yeah, that's the one. Just a little bit of work involved in getting it out the door. Welcome back to the laboratory. It's been a while. Hopefully the last year has treated you better than it's treated me, but I'm finally back in the shop again. We've got a different car in the shop that you haven't seen before on the channel. I've got like 13 cars, so there's lots of stuff you haven't actually seen yet. This is my 40th anniversary Mustang, and I've had it for a while. I bought it in California, and it served me as a Plan C car for some drag week and Rocky Mountain Race Week events over the years. But a few years ago, the fuel pump started not working every once in a while. If you drove the car regularly, it was fine, but if you let the car sit for any length of time, then the fuel pump would stick. So, of course, the first thing you do in a situation like this is you beat on the bottom of the fuel tank to hopefully unstick it. That didn't really work, but I did find out that if you actually put reverse voltage to the fuel pump, it would unstick it. And then it would be fine again for like a year. It got to the point where this was happening quite regularly. So I actually made my own little setup here. I bought a connector. I could plug it right into the harness going into the fuel tank, use my 12-volt trailer battery and a momentary switch. And again, I could reverse the polarity, hit the button, unstick the pump, and then it would be fine for a year. Well, then the pandemic hit, and then the car sat for actually more than a year, and the fuel pump is really stuck now. So we've got to deal with it. Now, if I was smart, I would have put the car away with an empty tank, knowing that this might happen. I'm not that smart. So it's got a full tank of fuel in it. So Ford has done a really good job at anti-siphon devices on these tanks. And I have tried a whole bunch of ways to try and siphon the fuel out of there, and no luck. So I bought a little 12-volt lift pump here and like 8 feet of 5/16 fuel line, And what we're going to try and do is we're going to disconnect the fuel filter in front of the tank and plug this thing in and see if we can actually get this to draw fuel through the stuck fuel pump. We'll see if it works and try and drain the tank that way, because 15 gallons is going to be a lot of weight and a lot of hazard to try and drop that tank when it's full. So we got to try and get the fuel out of it. So let's see how this is going to work. Here's our fuel filter in front of the tank. It's just held onto this bracket with a hose clamp, and we're going to replace this filter when we put a new fuel pump in here too. It's got Ford's famous push-to-connect fuel line fittings on it, so we're going to try and pull this one off, and hopefully when we pull that off, it's not going to start gushing fuel right away. I'm not sure exactly where the full tank level is with respect to the height of the fuel filter here, but ideally this comes off and it's not going to start gushing fuel on us right away. And I'm going to stick a hose on there and put our lift pump on there, and then again see if we can't drain some fuel out of the tank. Let's see how this works out. All right, we've got our special tool that we need for the push to connect. And we need to open this guy up a little bit so we can get it over top. And there we go. And squeeze that in. That should just pop right off. Just like that, except it didn't. There. Let me try a bigger pry bar. Okay, looks like it's moving. We're gonna get our hose ready to stick on there in case it starts gushing. And there is some gush. Oh, come on, out of the way. Okay, well, it's actually gushing out of the fuel line and not out of the fuel filter. But, yeah, that could have been way worse. And I've got the wrong gloves on for this. I should be wearing nitrile gloves, but oh well. All right, so we're going to wire this thing up and see if we can pull some fuel out of this tank after I change my gloves. All right, so we got the proper gloves on now, and we just made up an adapter that's going to plug into our fuel pump on this end, and then just some alligator clips, which we can use with my 12-volt trailer battery to see if this is going to work at all. And if it does work, then we can hook this up to like a full-size 12-volt battery. But let's see how it goes. It's making chugging noises. And there's zero fuel coming out. So we're not off to a good start. But let's try putting a full-size battery on this thing and see if it likes that better. I guess I should have made those wires longer. Okay, that didn't make any difference in how hard this thing seems to be pumping. And Nothing coming out of the hose. And our pump doesn't really seem to be doing a whole lot. Just vibrating a little bit. So there you go. When you buy a cheap Amazon 12-volt pump, don't expect much out of it. So I guess we're dropping the tank full. This is going to suck. All right, it's a couple days later, and we've got what I hope is going to be a better pump. Now, I don't know what the factory pump is, but if it's a Geroder type of pump, our chances of pulling fuel through it are probably slim to none, but I figured it's worth a try anyway. So we'll pop this pump in and see if it makes any difference over the cheap one. Make sure we've got the flow going the right way. That way. Get our adapter on here. And let's try a little battery first. Come on. It's making fuel pump like noises, but and it's bogging down. There's nothing coming out of the other end of the hose though. Not looking good. It's worth a try. It sounds like it's pumping something, but there's nothing coming out, so it's definitely trying. Okay, well, we're going to call that another fail. Now, while I was thinking about it last night, I've got one other thing to try before we just give up and dump the entire full tank. I'm going to try and put some compressed air back through the pump in a desperate attempt that maybe if I blow enough high pressure compressed air back at the pump, it might just unstick the pump, and then again I can use my little adapter harness here, plug it in, put it to the 12-volt battery, and if I can get the pump unstuck, maybe I can get the factory pump to actually empty the tank. It's worth a try. So let's give that a shot. Okay, so we've taken the electric pump out of the system. We've put the hose right to the factory filter, and we're going to get our battery here ready to go. We're going to try hooking this up with straight polarity, and I can hear the pump clicking, but it's not running, so it hasn't fixed itself, basically. We're going to leave that there where it's nice and precarious. And this is regulated down to about 90 psi right now, so we'll try this first. I'm guessing it's probably just going to blow the hose right off the filter, or blow it off the other end. I'm not sure I can hold both. Yeah. Okay, well. see if that made any difference. No, still clicking. Try and reverse it. Still just hear it clicking. Okay, so we're going to put a hose clamp on that thing so it doesn't blow off. We're going to try and put the 90 psi to it again, and if that doesn't do anything, then I've got unregulated 150 psi that we can try and put to it. Again, desperate hope of unjamming that factory pump long enough that I can use it to pump the tank out. So, step one, hose clamp. Okay, let's hope that that holds. So here goes nothing. It's making horrible squealing noises, so maybe that's something. Oh, but our pump still doesn't want to do anything. Okay, let's give it the full beans. Wait a minute. Fuel came out. Wow. Well, that's progress somehow. Lots of fuel came out, but it's not siphoning. And I've just created a major fire hazard. And our pump is still stuck. So, try one last desperate attempt at reversing the voltage, which used to unstick it. No such luck. Alright, well, it was worth a try. Alright, because I really don't want to drop this tank when it's completely full, there's one other thing I'm going to try yet. We're going to try, we need to disconnect all of this stuff. This is the fuel filler into the tank. We need to disconnect all of this stuff to pull the tank out anyway. I'm going to see if I can remove the entire filler neck without moving the tank first. If I can pull this thing out, then I can certainly get a hose in there and I can siphon the tank out. So that's going to be our, hopefully, next attempt that maybe works. All right, first thing we got to do is pull this off. So 5/16, I don't know, whatever that is in millimeters. Okay, so that loosens that bracket. Put that back in there so we don't lose it. And we need to yank out that hose. That one was easy. And the other one's got a push to connect on it. So we need to pop out the retainer here. Or we can just break it like I just did. Because these things do get brittle with age. There goes the other half. Yank that out. And now we're going to have to go inside the trunk and undo those bolts, and then into the filler door itself and undo those retaining bolts to get everything loose here. So let's do that next. So we need to remove this panel, and it looks like that one's behind this one. So we might have to, let's see how far we can pull this rear one forward. I've got hooks for a cargo net, but I never did get a cargo net with this car, so Don't know if that was optional or... Okay, well that's a good sign. It looks like I can pull this pretty far forward. And now it's just a matter of finding out what's holding that guy in place. Okay, so there's a... Okay, not much. So let me bring you over here and show you what we're looking at. So we've got 4 bolts there that again look like they're 5/16 size. So we'll undo those and then we'll go to the fuel filler. All right, I lied. There was actually only 3 bolts there, not 4. But I managed to get them all out without dropping any of them down the abyss with the quarter panel there. So now let's do the filler door. And we've got 3 bolts there to undo. All right, so extra complication. This whole enclosure here is actually attached with these Torx screws here, and inside of these little rubber bumpers, there's more Torx screws. So you can see that, maybe you can't see it. I don't know if the light is in the right direction, but anyway, this thing on the flange has got a boss that goes to one of these Torx screws. So we need to pull all of these Torx screws out. All right, and with those screws out, the door can come out, and now this whole thing is loose, with the goal, again, of trying to yank that whole filler neck out of the tank. So let's get back under the car, and let's see how successful we're going to be at that. All right, I don't know, again, how full is full in this tank, so if I yank this thing out, I don't know if it's going to start gushing fuel, so I've got a few drain pans on the standby and a big drip tray here. So let's see how this goes. Well, it's trying to come out. I lost my light here. Coming slowly. We're making progress. I don't know how long this thing is, but man, I'm running out of room to go this way. Well, the good news is nothing's dripping out of there, so I think the fuel level might be below that level. Either that or that's the world's best seal. But I seem to be running out of articulation room here. And again, I don't know how much longer that thing is, but I'm not seeing the end in sight here anywhere. Now, I have been warned to just cut this seal off and not try and reuse it. And I do have a new seal to go in there. But there's a ton of dirt around there. I don't really want to cut that seal off and have that dirt fall into the tank. But if I cut the seal off, that might help me get this thing out. Let's fight with it for a little bit more. No, we're definitely at the limit. So we'll add that as another failed attempt. I guess we're dropping the tank full. Oh well. Okay, well, to drop the tank, we need to disconnect the filler, disconnect these 2 hoses, which we've already done, disconnect the main harness, which we've already done, There's the fuel line that goes to the filter from the tank, so we need to disconnect that side of it, and we've disconnected the other side. And there's, I think, one more vent hose underneath there. There's a lot of plumbing that goes to this tank, a surprising amount. So we'll go around and we'll disconnect all of those things. We'll get the transmission jack under here, and we will try and drop this thing without starting my shop on fire. Wish me luck. So there's our connector. It's already undone. On the driver's side here, there's these two hoses. This one that looks like it's going to come undone really easily, and then we've got another push to connect one where that clip is probably going to break. And underneath here, we need to undo the other push to connect on the other side of the filter. And then we've got this other hose here. And I think that's it. So let's do that. All right, we've got our transmission jack in place under the tank. And to drop the tank, we need to undo that 13 millimeter bolt, that 13 millimeter bolt, and that 13 millimeter bolt. And then on the front side here, it just hinges. So we're going to undo the bolts and see what happens. All right, let's start with the easy one. Now let's start with the harder one. That's a long bolt. Okay, and the strap looks like it's attached to the tank itself, so that's good. Alright, one more bolt, and this is where it's going to get exciting. Whoa. All right, she is loose. At this point, I'm going to put a ratchet strap around this thing so it doesn't accidentally slide off the tank. Okay, I'm going to do something dangerous and let it down a little bit. And hopes that I can get that ratchet strap through there. All right. Okay, looks like the whole outfit needs to go this way a bit. And we're going to raise this corner up so it doesn't leak. Let it down a little bit more. Raise that side up a bit more. Wow, how long is this thing? Okay, we need to go down a little bit so that I can clear the spare tire well. with this part of the tank and get it past the exhaust, and then we can pull it this way and get that filler neck out. But yeah, that filler neck is really, really long. There's no chance that I was going to get that out now that I see it. But it was worth a try. And that is thunder, so it's going to storm outside in a minute. Which means that I should really get my other car into shelter in case it hails. Okay, this is, it's nice and tight, but we are hung up on the exhaust at the front of the tank. So we've got to go down a bit further. Okay, we are clear of the exhaust, so now if we can just get this filler neck out. If we could just get that filler neck out. There we go. And we left part of it in the tank, and I just dropped it in there. So whatever was on the end of this thing just broke off and fell into the tank. Anyway, the good news is there isn't fuel chugging out of here, and yeah, we'll call that a win. So let's get this thing down low enough to pull it out of the car. And then we can change the pump and fight with getting it back in the car. I'm sure that's going to go perfectly smooth. Okay, and there's our pump module right there. So we need to pull that out, put the new pump in, slam it all back together. All right, I took the shop vac and cleaned off as much as I could on the top of the tank, and then took the air hose and blew off the rest of the dust. I wanted to get it clean before I pull the fuel pump module out so nothing falls into the tank. But before I did that, I wanted to drain the tank. So again, using my little electric pump and my little 12-volt battery here, I did this off camera, but we managed to drain not quite 15 full gallons out of here, but I can show you, well, there was certainly 13 gallons worth of fuel in there. So now that the tank is pretty much empty as I can get it anyway, I can drop the thing on the ground and change the fuel pump.